Hey guys, welcome to the channel. So today's objective is to load the remaining cartridges for this weekend's upcoming shoot. I'm planning on shooting 1,000 yards with my 270 Winchester. So we've got about 10 primers left that we are going to load into our cartridges. As you can see over here, we've got about 40 loaded rounds already. This is for my 270 Winchester. Yeah, that means we have about 50 rounds to have some fun for this weekend shoot. So let's get started. Another thing that I'd like to mention is I'm trying out a different platform, a different camera. This is just mainly to try and improve on the quality of the videos for your viewing pleasure. So as you can see, this is how I sort my brass according to the different stages which it's at. Today we're going to be using this brass. It is already sized and trimmed, and it is ready to be primed and charged with powder, and then we're going to seat the bullet. Okay, so the first step is to get some brass. This has been inspected for flaws and donuts that might have occurred during the shooting process. So we are only going to do 10 for this video, which will make up the 50 that we need for this weekend. Okay, so now we need to get our primers. The primers that I use are CCI BR2 primers. Powder is a South African powder which is available to us. It's almost the only powder that's available to us and still remains affordable. The brand's name is called Somkem, and for a 270 Winchester we're going to use S365, which is very similar in performance to the well-known American-based powder, Hodgson H4350. Okay, so we've got our primers, and the next thing that we need to do is to seat the primers. I'm going to be using my press to seat the primers, and let's see how it goes. Okay, so that is our 10 primers. Yeah, I've gotten to grips with this press quite a bit, and I've got some good feel in the handle to determine whether the primer has seated adequately or not. It's not the fastest way, but that's just how I do things. Okay, so here is our powder that we will be using. It's a slow burning extruded propellant for rifles, and yeah, I think we should set up our scale now, ensure that it's zeroed properly so we can get the right charge and prevent an inaccurate charge. Okay, so as you can see, the balance beam scale has been zeroed, so now we can set the charge weight and get going. We don't need that much powder because, like I said, we're only going to be doing 10 rounds. So the powder measure has already been roughly set up because the last reloading that I was doing was for the 270, but it's always just a good idea to double check this. Okay, so let's quickly fill up this powder trickler. The problem is with this extruded powder is sometimes this powder measure tends to stick, but luckily I'm charging by weight and not by volume, so this should not be an issue. That is seeing that I'm using the balance beam scale to double check the weight, and if it's not according to the weight, I can always just trickle some extra powder into the pan, because I tend to set the powder dispenser to always throw under the desired charge weight. Okay, so the next step is to set the balance beam scale to the desired charge weight. In this case it's 53.5 grains. It's not a hot load, it's quite mild, but it manages to push the 130 grain burger classic hunter at roughly about 2980 feet per second, which should get the job done. Okay, so this is what our loaded round should look like at the end of the day. As you can see, the brass appears to be quite dull because the cleaning process that I use is a ultrasonic cleaning process, so it doesn't really shine the brass as much, but it cleans the brass well internally and externally. In future time I'm going to invest in something like a dry tumbler, so that I can ultrasonically clean the brass and then tumble to get the desired shine, which just makes the brass more aesthetically pleasing and doesn't really aid it in terms of function or accuracy. Okay, so the other thing to keep in mind for this cartridge is the charge weight I'm using now is or was worked out for a winter load, so that means your ambient temperature is much lower than in spring or summer. However, I'm going to use the same load. It will still shoot under an MOA, but we are running slightly higher pressures due to a higher ambient temperature, but since I already have 40 loaded rounds, I might as well complete these 10 rounds of today with the same load, so we can make up our 50. Okay, so another little trick that I use is once you've trickled up to almost your desired weight, sometimes you'll see you just need a extra kernel, and sometimes with a powder trickler you can see, oh, you can't really see it with that powder trickler, and the coarse propellant, it sometimes throws too much and then you are over your desired charge weight. So I'd rather stop just slightly under my desired charge weight, and then simply with a fine tweezer just grab a kernel and then put it in your little pan. Right, let's get started. And then onto the scale. So obviously it's slightly under, so then we will just trickle. Sometimes you get to trickle and then it actually works out quite well and you get your desired weight without having to use the tweezers. Okay, so this is the case I was almost talking about. Let's just go a little bit more. Okay, so that one seems to be almost just right. Perfect. So now we just empty this into our primed brass cases, making sure not to spill ink. And then in order for safety, once you've poured your charge, move your powder funnel onto the next case to prevent double charging. However, with the load I have now, it's not possible to double charge because the current charge almost takes up probably about 90% of the case volume. Right, so we just completed our last charge. One thing that occurred to me while I was doing this is that if you get low data off of a website or off of someone else's video, you should not use it. It is irresponsible because not one firearm is alike. If you wish to do so, remember, start 10% low on that load and then work your way up to prevent overcharging or creating a load where there are such high pressures that your firearm cannot contain that. Okay, so now it is time for seating our bullets. My bullet seating die has already been set up for this type of load, so the cartridge overall length and everything has been predetermined. We are going to be using the trusty Berger Classic Hunter 130 grain bullets, and simply the reason why I use a hunting bullet is because up to date it's the highest BC bullet that is available for 270 and should perform the most optimum at long range, and if you wish to hunt with it, you can. Okay, so for bullet seating I use Forster's, as you can see, bench rest seating die, and according to me and other people that I consulted, they said Forster dies were one of the best dies on the market except for custom dies and so on. So that's what I try to use, and as you can see, all of my other calibers also use Forster's dies. Okay, so for this part of the process I prefer to use, as you can see, medical examination gloves. This is just simply for when I touch these nice shiny Berger bullets, it's just to prevent the fatty acids from your fingertips from removing the shine on these bullets. This is also just simply to make the loaded round more aesthetically pleasing. Because of the bow tail, it's nice and easy to just simply place them on the charged case, and then we can proceed to the press. And there you have it. I have heard some people say that you should only seat the bullet halfway and then rotate your around 180 degrees. This is simply just to apparently improve the concentricity of your round, which makes it more accurate supposedly. However, I do not have a run-out meter, so I haven't been able to experiment whether this is true or not. I just simply depend or use or rely on the quality of the seating die to hopefully give me good concentricity. It's also just good to inspect your cartridge once you have seated the bullet, and then it's always good to do spot checks to see that your cartridge overall length is what you need it to be. And then the last one. Okay, so we have all of our 50 rounds done and dusted. For this 1,000-yard attempt, it's going to be my very first attempt at shooting 1,000 yards. Currently, the furthest I have shot is up to about 600 yards, so this should be something new and quite a bit of a learning experience. I hope to be sharing that with you, as I will be filming it, and until next time.